Good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for being here. Thanks for just being on and awake. And yeah, so my name's Kristen. I'm a personal branding strategist, and I'm here coming to you from my home in Calgary. And today I'm talking to you about executive presence. And this is going to look a little bit different than what I had originally planned. This week has been a tough week for me. I think it's been a tough week for a lot of people. And I can't sit here and talk to you about executive presence and not acknowledge that. For myself and my family this week, my son was sick. It kind of just blew up our whole week in terms of childcare and plans and things like that. Now I've got something going on. You might be able to hear it in my voice too. Yeah, it's just sort of the way things are going this week. So today I wasn't actually planning to have childcare or to have my son be in school. And so I thought I'd have my daughter here, like running around behind me or on my lap. And I was like, I got to cancel this thing. I can't be sitting here talking about executive presence with my 3-year-old and, My Little Ponies kind of scattered in front of me. But then I was like, that's exactly how you should be talking about executive presence, because that is how we need to be looking at it right now, moving forward. And that's how we always should have been looking at it as well. So as I was going through my LinkedIn feed this morning, I realized I'm actually not alone and far from it. And I'm in a very fortunate boat as well. So I want to acknowledge that. I was looking around and I saw some really interesting shares. One of them was a weather woman in Milwaukee, and she's got a very tiny baby on one arm, and she's got her green screen clicker, and she's the meteorologist. She's telling people the weather for the day, and she's doing it exceptionally well. I was chatting with some of the other women in my networks who are also moms, and seeing what their posts were. And I saw Julia Imanoff, who is an entrepreneur. She's a doctoral candidate and a mom with 2 young kids, and she's talking about the struggles that she's been enduring as well during this time, and explained that what that has looked like to her is keeping her family healthy, happy, and maintaining all of the things that we do, and going after and running a business and completing her education. So she's still going, and I'm so inspired by that. And I also want to be very clear in recognizing that that is what executive presence looks like. That is executive presence, because we are managing, we're leading, we're looking after those of our loved ones, our families. And then we're also coming and getting what we want to do done at work. We're leading. So Julie in her post explained that she's had to ask for extensions. She's had to ask for help in other areas. It doesn't look like the way that it has always looked, but this is executive presence. Another woman, Erica Scott, another Calgarian, and she shared on her social channels her bringing her young son in to a meeting. So Erica is a senior director or a VP at a large nonprofit organization, and expressing, her company is really welcoming and open to this, and with that, she recognizes the privilege that comes with that, and that should actually be the norm for people. If you have the kind of job where a kid can come and sit and rest next to you and have their toys out and play and be felt and embraced and feel warm and accepted in that room, that's the norm. And for those people who don't have that kind of job, we got to be helping them out too, because they really, really need that too. So these are examples of executive presence. Erica's making sure her family is okay, that they have what they need to be healthy and thriving. And she's coming in and showing up and delivering awesome ideas and feedback and pushing things forward in her organization. So anyways, this is the new form of executive presence. And for those of us who may not be in that boat where there's kids running around behind you, you're listening to sounds going on outside of your meeting room walls and trying to decipher, was that scream a fun one, or was that a head injury scream, while also paying attention to an important meeting? If that's not you, here's what one of the small things that you can do to help other people out. And that is when their family, their kids are popping up behind you in Zoom, or they have to pause a meeting to go deal with the situation, be extra, go above and beyond with the warm fuzzies. The person who has to, pause things to go deal with a kid emergency, or has their kids flying around behind them, isn't going to know how that's being received. They're going to feel like, is my job on the line? Am I not being seen as the executive, as the leader, as the professional that I am, because you can see my home life going on behind me. So what I'm asking you to do is just embrace it. Be over the top if you need to be, but just express how welcoming and happy you are to see these kids, that it's okay, that we're going to pause things and wait for you. Things like that really do make a difference in making sure people feel comfortable. This has been going on for 2 years, and people have been, trying to keep things, looking up good and tidy, but it's really hard to keep it up. Our work life and our home lives have become more integrated, and what worked in the past really wasn't working for everyone. So let's take stock of what we can do to make sure that more people are included in the future. And that includes these moms, these parents who are balancing and juggling and keeping all of these things up in the air. Okay, so yeah, that's what I wanted to kick this off with, is let's open up our minds about executive presence. When we've been brought up, I know for me personally, when I was a girl growing up and hearing executives or hearing the term executive presence, a couple of different things came to mind. Men certainly came to mind, and that was a really narrow view of executive presence. The other thing that came to mind was this idea that you have it or you don't. And I definitely did not. So that made me really insecure, and it made me feel like, well, I could never be that or do those things. And it wasn't until I really dove into this work of personal branding that I discovered, oh, actually, this is a skill. And some of the people who I see now leading and delivering their work and their message, they talk about how it wasn't something that they were born with either, but it was something that they learned how to do. So just to further, crack open this idea and broaden the narrow scope that we've kind of been conditioned with in terms of executive presence and what that looks like. It's something that we can all have, no matter what your role is, no matter what you're doing within the company or the organization that you are with. And let's just be more open to different people expressing themselves and bringing their full selves into work and into their personal brands. Okay. So I wrote a blog about executive presence last year, and it was, I think, my top most visited or commented on, or looking at all those social media stats and things like that, it performed the best. And I got some just sort of personal comments about it as well offline. And so I thought, hey, let's revisit it. And so that's what I want to do today. And it just so happened to happen at the same time as me also pushing myself and my boundaries about what executive presence is. So it felt like bad timing, but it is actually really, really perfect timing. So there are 3 areas of executive presence that I want you to focus on. And if you aren't really sure what executive presence is, it's that thing that, when you see someone lead and you recognize them as a leader, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with their job title, but they might have charisma. That might be another word that you would use to describe them. The it factor or the X factor or other words that I've heard thrown around, or simply just presence. But our presence is much more than just, physically being somewhere. Presence is how you're engaging with people. And it really also has to do with how you're impacting them. And it's about creating positive impact, having the ability to influence people, influence ideas, influence the way that things get done within your organization too. And so this is something that is really important to our careers. We want to have influence no matter where we are within the organization currently. Many of us have goals and aspirations, and executive presence is one of the tools or a soft skill that is really important that we develop. So what are these 3 areas that we want to concentrate on? Well, the first one, believe it or not, is it has nothing to do with other people. And so if you've been paying attention or following what I talk about for a long time, you'll know that I really talk about personal branding as how you're impacting others. It's not all about yourself, it's about others. But when it comes to our executive presence, it really has to do with our mindset. Kind of take a deep breath. I got a little bit of a sore throat myself today. So our mindset, how we're feeling about ourselves, how we're feeling about our work, how we're feeling about what we're talking about. So that mindset that we have actually translates into our confidence. So there's a lot of really great resources out there about mindset, strengthening our mindset, building our confidence, building up our capacity to speak with confidence. And so I want you to pause there and think about that mindset piece and what might be holding you back. Is it that imposter syndrome, that idea that you do not belong at the table, that you do not have anything new or anything exciting to say? That's absolutely not true. You absolutely deserve to be there. Even if you are an only, you are especially needed at that table. So mindset, it's all about building your self-confidence, and self-confidence in a true way, in a way that's not about, putting anybody else down. It's not about putting on airs or, creating this persona that you're really, really confident. It's really about self-reflection, looking at, what makes you feel good, what kind of work you're making the most impact in. I could go on all day about mindset, but I know we don't have time to get into it, but really take that time to think about who you are and what you need to maybe shake off in order to step into that confident person that you are and that you can be. So that is step number 1, your mindset. And step number 2 is about your message. So if you kind of sit back and you start to pay attention to other people that you see as leaders, as having that executive presence, one thing that you'll start to notice they have in common is their message. They are able to communicate their ideas, their opinions, their feedback very clearly and very effectively. And they do this not by being the loudest in the room or taking up the most physical space. They do this just with an ease, a quiet confidence often. And so that's that message piece. And there's a framework that I'll share with you in a minute. But this message piece is a really, really good and an important one, because I think, again, we've always had that narrow idea of what executive presence can look like and should look like. But oftentimes someone with real presence or executive presence isn't necessarily that. They're the person who can communicate their ideas. They're the person who can listen really effectively to other people's ideas as well. Oftentimes when we're afraid to speak up in a meeting, it's because we're like, oh, can I articulate what it is I want to say? We've all been there. I know I've been there when you kind of are rambling, you're kind of going off on a tangent, say, and people are looking at you like, I'm not quite sure I understand what she's saying. So I want to share with you a framework that you can use to share your messages really, really succinctly and clearly so that you can get your great ideas across. So here it is. Step one is make your point. So say what your point is, give your idea, then give a reason. This is my idea. This is the reason I'm sharing this idea. And then give an example. So make your point, give a reason, give an example, and you're done. I think for a lot of people, what gets to be hard is sometimes there is a pause. There's a moment of silence. And that could it's just because people are listening. They're in tune to what you're saying. Sit with that silence for a moment. It could be a millisecond, but we want to fill that silence where we feel uncomfortable when there's silence. Pause and sit back and wait. Let them know that you're done. And this is how others with that executive presence do it. So if you are not unsure about how to have that executive presence, how to present your ideas, pause before you show up to meetings, or have this in a Post-it note posted next to your computer. Make your point, give a reason, give an example, get out. So try that. Let me know how it goes. And can I get a message if there are any comments too, please? Let's see if this is a question that is coming in. No questions yet, but if you do have questions, please do let me know. I come back to the comments after the lives as well. So absolutely feel free to add your questions, add your comments, so show your support for other people who are leading in their own unique way of executive presence, the new standard of executive presence. Okay, so we've covered confidence / mindset. We've covered the framework for your message, getting your great ideas and messages across. And then I want to talk about execution. So this is probably what a lot of people think when they hear about executive presence. They think about your body language. And that is a really, really important aspect of it. But also remember that the internal part has to happen first. The internal part, that mindset, when that confidence happens, it's going to be more natural in how your execution is happening. So that execution piece includes things like your eye contact. For a lot of people, that's really, really important. Being able to look somebody in the eye as you're sharing your great ideas with them, or to show that you're listening. This is something that I was always really happy to learn years ago, but hand signals, hand gestures are actually a positive thing. I know I've been kind of made fun of before for my hand gestures, and I know I'm not alone in that. Funny story, I was on a first date once, and I spilled a big giant cocktail on my date's lap. But hey, that worked out, but also the body language piece is not a bad thing. The reason that it is important to do, and that it's okay to do, is it's because when we see someone gesturing with their hands, when we see someone doing that, it shows that intuitively, when we see that, we believe that the person doing that believes very strongly in what they're saying. So pay attention to that when you see it, pay attention to that as you start doing it, allow yourself to do it as well. And one of the things that I also talk to my clients about, if I'm helping them prepare for, if it's a media thing, an interview, things like that, is making sure your camera is tilted down enough so that your enough of your the top half of your body is seen so that they can see your hand gestures. And it's the head nod and things like that. And it makes it much more engaging. There's a whole lot of other things that I've learned as a speaker to do with my execution, with my body language, to really show people this point that I'm trying to make is very, very important. But those are kind of the basics: the eye contact, and the hand signals as well, the hand gestures. So I've talked here for about 25 minutes, it looks like. And so I hope I have opened up your eyes a little bit about the idea that executive presence is more than what we originally believed it to be. It's much more than that narrow idea of one type of person who could have executive presence, that it is somebody who is managing their lives, asking for help, and leading in a way that is absolutely true to them. And it does not look like the way that it has been shown to us over the years. It also looks like being strong in your convictions, believing in what you're talking about, and in being able to succinctly express your ideas. And when you have those two things, especially when you are executing and you are speaking and you're sharing your ideas, that execution just comes much more naturally. So start with the first two first before you launch into the execution piece, which is oftentimes where people will begin. So thank you all very much. Please keep your questions and comments coming. And remember to be extra warm, extra welcoming to your colleagues, your business partners, your students who have a life in addition to a wonderful career. And those lives that we all have make us better at our jobs. They make us more compassionate, more human, and oftentimes more passionate about the job itself. So anyways, I am thinking of you if your week has been, or your year has been a challenging one. You're definitely not alone. If it feels like this is wild, if it feels like this is unfair, if it feels like this is too much for somebody, it's because it is. And so if that's you, I encourage you to firstly give yourself some grace, and second, ask for help. So yeah, I'm thinking of you. Anyways, have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next week. Bye, everybody.